Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Food Enthusiast show of 2021. If you've not seen the show before, I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. I'm excited today. Today's guest is John Hauser III, the creator and moderator of the Rouxde Cooking School Podcast. Now, let me tell you how that's spelled. It's spelled the culinary way, Rouxde, but pronounced Rouxde. So, Rouxde Cooking School Podcast, which is soon to celebrate its fourth year. Most likely, it's called Rude because the show is pretty irreverent, inane, silly, educational, and it's all based around food. Food is the core ingredient in this, but it's not your typical podcast or Facebook page because there is one. It is a lot of fun. John's full-time profession is an art director and graphic artist. Hi, John. He has degrees in photography and a culinary degree as well. So, John, what's cooking at the Rouxde Cooking School today?
Nothing much. Thank you for having me on the show, Dara. I really appreciate it.
Well, my pleasure. You know, it's turning the tables on you because you're usually the host and you're interviewing people.
Well,
And we should tell people that you're having me on your show next week, so I better be well prepared.
yeah, it's okay that I'm on the other side because most of the time I just talk anyway.
I want to tell people I get such a kick out of the Facebook page, which is the Rouxde Cooking Show podcast, but the people that are members for all over the world that are posting unusual things. One of the recent posts was somebody boiling pasta in the blue Gatorade. How disgusting was that? But I watched it. Okay, where's this going?
It hurt my soul to watch that. It was terrible.
And then they sort of tried to make a roux out of it too.
The thing about that video that drove me insane was that they used a spaghetti scoop to do the whole thing. Like I'm like yelling. Yeah, I'm like yelling, like use a whisk, and it's so lumpy, gross.
And they took it off. They came back later. It was smooth, probably.
Yeah.
The whisk to it. Let me do this. I need to. I have a whole new setup since I moved, and I want to bring this up so I can see if any people are sending in any questions.
Sure.
And let's see. We have a couple people watching. Hi, Jeffrey. We do have a comment there, and I'll keep my eyes on it. God, my hair looks disgusting. I'm looking at it here.
You look wonderful. Stop.
Well, thank you. It's due for a cut. This is called, it did get one cut since last March, but it's way beyond control now. What inspired the podcast?
I was wanting to start a podcast for years. Ever since maybe I started really listening to podcasts when my wife got pregnant in 2010. And while I was getting the baby's room together, I started listening and I was like, I could do this. And I realized I had been in bands for years before, and I had all this equipment sitting around doing nothing. And it even then, it took me a few years until because I always wanted a co-host. And then a woman started working with me who was like, we were instant, BFFs, and we were just same sort of mind with jokes. And I just asked her one day, like, hey, do you want to do this thing? And she was like, sure. So the next week we just did it. And now we're 4 years in. She's no longer on the podcast, but it's still going.
Well, everybody, we have an ISO right now in search of a partner for John. So that adds out there. If you love food, if you like bantering back and forth and see the stupidity in most things that go on, then you're a perfect partner for John.
I mean, stupidity to a point. Like, we joke, but it's a serious show. on the days, so what the episodes are, on every other week, I interview someone. So next week now that Rebecca's not in the podcast anymore, I'm just going to be doing interviews until I figure out what my next move is. But the way it would go is I'd have an interview, and then the next week would be with Rebecca, and we cover one topic of food. So like peas or corn or, just the one thing. And it's like, it's like I write a college grade paper every week, like I have like 17 pages of notes and writing that like I'm, putting together. It's very serious, even though we are trying to entertain.
Well, I'm not. I have one page of notes here, so you'll see me glance
Oh, that's
down. You'll
okay.
see me watch over here. Uh, in the meantime, for those people that John's contact information has rotated up in the notes for the Facebook page and will be up on the jmoreliving.com page. Uh, what is the weirdest food combo you've ever tried?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, sometimes, late at night under certain substances, I've eaten a bunch of very odd things, like I couldn't remember one or the other, but it's, I'm never really a big sweets person. So it's always like an odd combination of like lunch meat and, whatever's just in the fridge, leftovers, and I heat it all up and just garbage it all down. Yeah.
Well, that brings up a point. I went back to see one of your earlier posts on Facebook back to 2017,
Okay.
and you had ham banana rolls.
Oh God, those things. Yeah. That was an episode we did on bananas, I think. And that ham banana roll was from the 60s. And it was from the Chiquita company, and they were trying to bananas still weren't a big thing yet in America. They were still thought of as like an exotic food, and they were trying to get people to eat more bananas. So they thought by pairing it with cheese sauce and wrapping them in ham and mustard, the it was sort of like a weird cordon bleu thing where, if you slathered the ham with mustard, wrapped it around the banana, covered it in cheese, and baked it, more Americans would want bananas. Yeah, we've done a lot of really, like, one thing I do is like I'm still a food writer, but I've written for the Baltimore Sun, the City Paper, the Guardian. I've written for JMore. I've done videos for them. I love research, and I love researching the topic. And the weirder the thing that I can find, I love it. Like for the one famous one that we talk about with everybody who's listened to the episode is our episode on peas. There was a man who was eating peas, raw peas, and he would eat them whole. He would just sort of swallow them. And
With the
one of them,
shell?
yeah, unshelled, and he inhaled one by accident, and he coughed and he thought he got it out, but he had bad lungs. He didn't realize that it had gotten wedged into his mucous membrane in his lungs, and he thought, like, after a while, he thought he had like a severe lung problem. So they did an X-ray and found a black spot, like a black star, and then they opened him up because they were like, "You have cancer, sir. We need to operate."
Right.
And they operated and opened him up, and there was the pea, and it had sprouted in his lungs, and it was trying to make its way out, because peas don't, like, underground, they don't need sunlight, but the shoot goes towards the light, and it was trying to make its way out. Yeah. I love finding stuff like that.
Okay, let's see. Are there any emerging food trends that you catch wind of and think WTF? Alternatively, innovations that you say it's about time.
Um, I, all food trends to me are ridiculous and I love them. You know, like the rainbow thing or the glitter thing. Like I I hate them, but I instantly love them because if there's a thing that will draw someone into cooking, even if it's something as silly as that, hey, I'm all for it. Like that's how everybody starts, right? Like everybody gets into food because there's like one thing, right? There's one thing that
What
they
got
love
you
that
into
brings them
food?
in.
What got
Um,
you into food?
I grew up relatively poor in the south side of Baltimore, southwest Baltimore, and I we didn't really eat a lot of fresh vegetables. And I got a job in Catonsville at the Candlelight Inn, if you remember that place.
I do. I
Yeah,
do.
and this was in the early '90s, and I started out as a dishwasher there, and I remember the first like family meal or staff meal that I got, and it was quiche, and it had fresh green beans in it, and then as a side, my chef gave me fresh asparagus, which I hated asparagus up until that point, but it had all been canned, and I was like, "What is this crap? I don't want this." And he's like, "Just eat it," because he had sort of pegged me for what I was, right? And
Right.
um, that first piece of asparagus was mind blowing. Like it knocked my socks off. And I thought quiche was like super duper fancy, you know, like
Right.
I never just thought it was just eggs, right? Like it was quiche. And but having that asparagus was the thing that really it's that moment in Ratatouille where he eats the two things together and there's that spark. That was my spark. Oh, and then to follow up on the question, most modern inventions are time wasters or space wasters for me. But I will say that like my sous vide rig, I really enjoy that.
And it's funny. I Most people who know me personally know that I just moved out of a house I was in for 38 years, and I moved into an apartment,
Mhm.
and things I had to give up or get rid of. And I still have a pretty damn complete kitchen. But I don't need that watermelon slicer.
Right.
So, you know, that went to charity. There's just too much of it. Um, and what was your goal when you decided to go to culinary school? I mean, you were already working as a graphic artist and the music and everything else.
I was it's the dumbest reason. I felt inadequate in my cooking, and at the time I was starting to write more for the Baltimore Sun, and I just felt that I wasn't prepared enough, and I didn't feel like I had enough authority to speak on things. So there's only so much you can get from reading, and you need practicality. So I went to BIC, Baltimore International College, to fill in the spots that I needed because I was a good cook. Like my love of cooking started at the Candlelight Inn. I started as a dishwasher, and by the time I left, I was doing very menial things on the line. But learning to prep food, learning how to use a knife, that stuff I had already known. But there was still like a hole in my education that I thought I needed to satisfy. So
Right.
yeah, that's why I went to culinary school. It's the biggest waste of money I ever made. I ever did.
There's some people who it's important that they go get some of the basics.
Yeah.
And you probably already went in knowing three-quarters of what they were teaching you.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that part, what I should have done, which is what I tell people that say they want to go to culinary school now. I usually say, don't go to culinary school. Don't waste your money. Just start working in restaurants. Do whatever they want. Like if they need help on your days off. If they need somebody to wash the dishes, do that because then you'll appreciate what goes into someone, washing dishes all day. Learn everything you can, and then when you're done, go to another place. Work at an Italian place. Work at a place that does Greek food. Work at a place that does Mexican food. Try as much stuff as you
right,
can, and not just big places where you can stage at, right? Like go to regular mom and pop places, go to bakeries, learn that way. And honestly, if you can, do it for free, because they'll always, no one's going to turn you away if you can do it, but get paid for it if possible.
Right. Well, it's a tough time now to go out and stage.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah.
So, uh, so let's see what else I have. I was interesting. I'm going to bring up a subject. Um, I grew up in a family where my mother made sweetbreads
Okay.
in a cream sauce. And listening to your podcast, probably the most expensive meals you had was at Joel Robuchon's and
Yes.
having sweetbreads.
Yep.
So you got them down, but I don't think you really liked them.
No, I love sweetbreads. I didn't like the way that I had them prepared there, because they were bigger. Can you hear me?
You sort of dropped off.
Okay.
I can hear you, but it's faint.
Okay, I'll talk louder. Yeah, I've had them before, and I'd had them before going to Joel Robuchon's place, but I never had them as undercooked. They were really, really around under medium rare almost. And the way they described it was as creamy meat, and that sounded terrible. So I ate it, and I enjoyed it for what it was, but that wasn't my favorite way to have sweetbreads.
I don't know if it's on my end. I just started using earbuds, and maybe I touched it. Or did something go off in your place?
No, I can hear you fine.
Okay, so I don't know how we lost the sound. I mean, I hear you, but I think I'm hearing you. I don't know. Well, we'll work it out. I can still hear you. So let's see, what else? You have been a big supporter of Guy Fieri, who is a chef on the Food Network, and most people really, really knock him, and he shouldn't be knocked. So why don't you fill people in on what Guy Fieri's been doing?
I mean, I'm with everybody else. I was with everybody else in the beginning. I thought he was a joke, and I thought he was just all personality and no substance. And the more I learned about him, and the more people I talked to around Baltimore who had been on his show, I found out, one, he was a really nice guy, took everything seriously, really gave them good advice. He understands what his show means to restaurants. So like he prepares them, like, get a bunch of people in here, because is the day after this airs, you're going to get slammed, and don't have that happen, because then people won't come back. And what he does for mom and pop businesses around the country, it can't be overstated how much he's done for mom and pop places around the country. And as much as he does for charity, as much as he does for gay rights, he does a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and it's really impressive. If you listen to our episode on Guy Fieri, we have episodes that we do about chefs, and he was one of the people. It's really impressive what he's done, and he's no dummy. He went to France when he was a teenager, and really that's what really started getting him going. He's had his own like, he had a food cart at age 15. Like, he's been in the game a long time.
Well, I got ear pods over the holidays, and one already fell out. I know
Okay.
I'm going to disconnect.
So you can hear me now? Are we good?
I can hear you. I can hear you better. Somebody's
Okay.
saying it's on my end. I don't know.
Okay. I was getting some slapbacks and feedback, echo going for a while. Not anymore.
Okay. Let me, Jen, if you're there, if you could just put John on screen. And John, we're going to just give you.
Hello. Hi. I'm here by myself. I can't hear anyone. I'm just going to talk until someone shows
John.
up.
Oh, here I am.
Yeah. Hey.
Okay. Hopefully I don't disconnect.
The only thing that's gone on my end is my light's gone out.
Is what?
My light has gone out. I don't know why.
Okay. And who knows? With the earbuds.
Okay. Technology, everybody. It's great, right?
I didn't disconnect. We'll see what the final product looks like. Let's see. Let's see. There were a couple of tweets. Here it goes again. Jen and I tested this. Hopefully I won't disconnect.
The one thing,
if you can hear me fine, I'll just leave this one out.
Sure.
There were a couple interesting tweets that I thought were fun.
Okay.
And somebody put, most people don't realize this, but you can eat organic, gluten-free food without telling everyone around you.
Yeah, I mean, food has become such currency, such pop culture currency, that people wear it like band shirts, right? Like, I mean, even I'm wearing a mise en place shirt right now because I want people to know that I'm a cook, right? But some people like to wear their culinary interests on their sleeve and tell everyone about it. Like, you know, vegans, vegetarians, people that are meatitarians, people that love to eat meat. They don't shut up either. It's a thing that a lot of people can't get out of their own way, and I don't mind it. But when people beat you over the head with it constantly, or complain that, you know, oh, this recipe's not good because I substituted out the meat and it wasn't good. Well, you know, the recipe was written for meat, you know, that kind of thing. I don't mind it, but sometimes it does get to me.
Well, let's see what happens. There's always something technical. But as long as you're hearing me,
I can hear you perfectly fine.
Saying it's my audio that's off. So let's see what else. You know, you've been supporting a lot of the restaurants that are doing the box meals here in Baltimore.
Yeah.
You did Nancy Longo's at Pier Point. Who else have you done?
Jessie Sandlin. She doesn't do Jessie Sandlin at Sally O's. She doesn't do a box thing, but she opened up a restaurant in the middle of a pandemic. And I mean, anybody watching this, get in touch with me if you want to come on the show and promote your restaurant or your food business. Like, I would love to magnify and amplify that, because it's such a strange time in America and in Baltimore, and even more myopically in the Baltimore food scene. And, you know, having Dave Seal on to promote the Baltimore restaurant business, the thing he's doing, or having, you know, Chino on to promote himself and Pinch Dumplings. I think it's important for people that might not know of these restaurants or restaurateurs and or cooks. They need to know what they're going through. My friend Jenny, she has her parents basically like diner that she took over last year, and she's in Brooklyn serving truckers now. You know, like, she used to be the main person for the place that smokes all the fish. She used to work there, and now she has her own place, and that needs to be acknowledged too. Everybody's in the same boat together, and we just need to try to make it as easy for each other as possible. And I take pride that I can help in any way I can.
Okay. You know, I tell everybody here in Baltimore, you know, people listen from around the country and some around the world. There's the time to reach out to the restaurants that you support and get those carry out meals. You know, or if you don't, you're not going to be here next week. You have
Absolutely.
to support the restaurant.
And
Love these earbuds.
and it's hard. It's hard sometimes because I have so many friends that are in the restaurant business, and to like go from one place a week to another and give them my business, I feel bad that like I'm not really focusing on some of the places that I prefer, but I want to try to spread my money around just to help as much as I can, and also, you know, I don't want them all to go out of business. Like, I'm terrified. I've had so many friends that don't have jobs, or their place closed down. One of my best friends worked for a restaurant, and they went out of business, and he worked for them for 13 years, and he got nothing out of it. He just got a thank you, and that's terrifying and heartbreaking.
Well, I think my earbuds have failed me, and let me see something. I don't know. Let's see. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, much clearer.
I hear it better, so okay.
Great.
So we're going to hold the phone, and I'm sorry, folks. I took the earbuds out, and I put in a microphone with a cord. So
I will say, as dire and as serious as things are, one thing I am really proud of is the Facebook page. The podcast, like, we have listeners from all over the world, all over the country, and the Facebook is basically the hub for all those people to meet up and be silly and, not take food as serious as some people think they should, and to sort of take the piss out of it, and for what it is. It's just food. It's just eating, no matter if it's at Joël Robuchon's place or, when you're high in your kitchen, right? Like, that's what the Facebook page is for. And we have a lot of fun with it. And I'm really proud of the community that is on that Facebook page, because honestly, I don't have to post on it anymore. It's kind of self-sufficient at this point.
Right, and your partner Rebecca still acts as an admin.
Absolutely.
And she contributes.
Yes.
Right,
Yep.
right.
And if anybody steps out of line, she will be the first person to bounce them out of there. That's the other thing about it is, as much as we make fun of, or, joke and post silly things, no one feels attacked. No one feels like they're not wanted there, because we curate that place to be that way. And it's the first sign of someone not being cool and not abiding by the guidelines, they're bounced out.
Well, I know it's irreverent, and the podcast is, and I can't recommend people more to find the podcast. Remember, people, it's pronounced rude, but it's spelled Rouxde.
Worst mistake of my life.
School.
I thought I was going to be clever, and nobody can pronounce the word.
Well, I had to look it up. So, okay, I'm losing this ear. I think I have problem ears. So I have a couple questions I ask at the end of the show.
Sure.
What was your most epic culinary fail?
Oh, okay. I tried to make hot dogs one time at home.
Really?
And it was awful. It was before I'd really gotten the basics of garde manger down. So I just got some recipe off the internet and ground the meat up and made a force meat. And God, it was so much. And Christ, by the end of it, it would have made 5 dozen hot dogs. It was so much. And I tried filling these casings I got, and then I boiled them, and they all separated. And I had these tubes of oil with meat skeleton. Oh, it was awful. It was, and they were leaking. It was so gross because the force meat broke, and I'd spent collectively, oh gosh, 12 hours on it throughout the day. It was heartbreaking. And it, like, imagine me in my kitchen at like, it was almost like 3 a.m, just almost in tears that it didn't work. It was terrible.
Okay, and I have another question. What's your favorite local food? Burger cookings, crab cakes?
Um, I'm not a big fan of burger cookies. I like anything from Hone's Bakery, in Southeast Baltimore.
Right.
Uh, I've lived in Southeast Baltimore now for almost 20 years, and that place, anything they make is just amazing. Um, Reb's candy, I'm a giant fan of. Uh, I grew up with Reb's, and I'll still.
Okay. I lost you for a second.
Yeah,
There you are. You're back. Okay. Technical difficulties.
but if no one's checked out Reb's candy, check them out
Oh,
because
they're great.
they've
You
got the
know, there
best
was
candy I've ever had.
there was a story about Rebs that the scene on the Lucille Ball show
Mm.
where they had the line of the chocolates going down was either filmed at Rebs or inspired by Rebs or something.
Oh,
There's
that's
some
interesting.
sort of history to that, and you can look into it, go into. So check it out.
Yeah, I have to. My mom used to work. My mom worked there for like 15 or 20 years, so I have to ask her.
See if she knows anything. There was something built around that.
And she loves that scene too. So yeah.
Yeah. Um, I love the chocolate covered marzipan. That is like my favorite chocolate.
Yeah.
It's so good. So any of you listening, chocolate covered marzipan, send it to me. All righty. So, and my final question is, what didn't I ask you that I should have?
Oh. Um. I don't know. I think maybe what I think your question you should have asked me was maybe what I think where I think the show's going, or what kind of topics I would like, or what kind of topics you would like, that kind of thing. What would
Gee,
you like to
John,
see?
where do you think your show is going, and what sort of topics do you think people would like to hear?
Honestly, I'm at a point now where I'm sort of the driving force. I've been sort of the creative force behind the show most of the time, so I get a little bogged down and in my own head. And I'm at the point now where I want to start picking other people's brains and sort of see what sort of topics they would like, because what I enjoy are the really simple ones, like basic, like corn or peas, right? Like just the history of that in the world and that kind of thing. Just because I'm such a nerd about the history of it, but like a lot of people want to hear like the history of uh, something more complicated than just a single thing, and I find that fascinating and have been delving into that kind, or into cuisines in themselves, which I find massively overwhelming, to try to fit the history of a cuisine into
An
an
hour.
hour episode. Yeah.
No, it
So
can't be done. It's part one, part two, part
yeah,
three,
like
and
I've
go.
done burgers or pizza, and those episodes were almost 2 hours, and I'm gonna have to go back because they're just such giant topics.
You bring up a subject. Next week's guest is Daniel Young of Young and Foodish.
Okay.
And he is in London, and we'll be speaking to him. And he created the very popular Burger Monday, Pizza Tuesday, um, a Spaghetti Wednesday, the simple foods, and doing a lot of pop ups, which have changed. But he was originally the food critic for the New York Post, I think, and he has written books, more compendiums and some recipes. Let me see, I'm looking my notes. Um, Made in Marseille, Paris Cafe Cookbook Recipes, Coffee Love. And the huge compendium of pizza, where to buy your best pizza, and he had 1,000 experts from all around the world. So it's this huge compendium about pizza. So it took him a long time to do that, and you're trying to do pizza in 2 hours. I mean, it's not
Right.
happening.
When you have him on next week, ask him what his favorite Scotch egg is.
You like Scotch eggs?
I was over in London 3 years ago, and they're everywhere. And so, like, duck eggs, chicken eggs, quail eggs, wrapped in chorizo, wrapped in sausage, wrapped in wonton filling meat. It's amazing. The Scotch egg is blown up over there.
Well, we're going to continue this. It'll be part 2 of this interview on the Rouxde Cooking Show next Thursday.
The Rouxde Cooking School
Podcast at 6 p.m. Yep. Now, you don't do it live. You just record it then?
No, it'll come out early Friday morning. So I usually drop it. I usually record it, edit it, and have it out that night. So it'll be late Thursday night, early Friday morning.
Okay. So everybody, let me remind you, it is the Rouxde Cooking School Podcast, and that is on Facebook, the Rouxde Cooking School Podcast, and that's ROUXDE. And his social media is Rouxde Podcast with that unique spelling, ROUXDE Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. I really want to thank you. I look forward to reversing the roles next Thursday. And I'm sure, you might find 1 or 2 pages on me that you can sit there and come up with.
I'm excited to get into your background more, because I know we've talked in the past about what you've done, but I'm really, really interested to dive a little deeper.
It's a path that has gone many different ways. People who I was a fan of have now become over the years my friend. And it's interesting to see that evolution. The best for the New Year's. We will talk next Thursday, John, and everyone. I thank you. This will be up on J More Living's Facebook page as soon as this episode is over. It will be up on jmoreliving.com by the end of the day and on YouTube. And you can email me at food@jmoreliving.com. My social media is @Dara Cooks. And as always, wear your mask, stay safe, and may your plates always, always remain full. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Dara. I really appreciate it.